Hello everyone, I have a radiation implementation for Interstellar System Heat that I would like to discuss and get some feedback on. It's fairly simple right now. This is radiation from reactors, not background radiation. And basically the reactor configuration will have two entries. It'll have a radiation amount for neutron radiation and then a radiation amount for high energy radiation like gamma rays and x-rays. And so there's two types of radiation that it's going to track. And it doesn't say anything here, but if we click on the crew module here, you will see that it'll combine the two types of radiation into a time to unsafe amount. So it's not going to give you the raw amount of radiation. It's going to tell you how long they can survive in there and keep it really simple. Now, it's possible to have a nice complicated menu like we have down here, but I've sure got a lot of those already. And same with the little menus on the side during the flight screen where I'm constantly trying to search for the right icon. So, given that, I have decided not to try to make a new little menu like this life support one, for instance, and to try and keep it short here. So that's all we've got, time to unsafe. Now this is fairly useful though because the pod's amount of radiation exposure does depend on the distance from the reactor and also what's in the way. Well, in particular, anything in a fuel tank. So here we have the pod here, and notice what happens when I place it here. Okay, well, we've got 50.4 minutes now. About here, 2 minutes. Well, that's because this tank is no longer in the way. And if we put it really close to the reactor, let's say right behind it, 4 seconds till it's unsafe. So don't do that. We will have other forms of shielding as well. 51 minutes is obviously not good enough. I might be putting too much radiation on this, but it is for test purposes, of course. And we don't have any lead here. It's just a whole bunch of hydrogen. Now, you might go, well, what happens when this gets depleted if it's thinking that this hydrogen is going to block it, right? Well, the rule is that once it's below 50%, it doesn't do its job anymore. So here, it gets down to 6.8 minutes. So you're going to have to keep it at least half full, okay? And it is dependent on the thickness of the tank in the direction between the reactor and the pod. So if we reduce the thickness, the time to unsafe decreases. So this is all configured, by the way, per resource. So if we take a look at the configuration file, and this is all very roughly done right now. The in-game model is nothing like my radiation model that I have for the calculator that I have on my website. So that one is calculating the radiation in a much more complex manner, but that doesn't allow for much flexibility in terms of implementation. So I've tried to keep it simple for implementation so that we can do a little bit more with it. But you can see there's this ISH shield resource, and each resource is defined. I haven't defined lead yet, but we've got methane, water, liquid fuel oxidizer, ore should be much better for it. I don't know. I'll have to check on the density for ore. I feel like those numbers should be bumped up. But they each have neutron effectiveness and high energy effectiveness to match with the emissions from the actual reactor. So the reactor will have a definition. Let's see here. It'll just have a neutron radiation max and a high energy radiation max. And then the shield resources will block those. And there'll be a dedicated shadow shield part that'll be separate. But you can just use any tank with any resource that is listed in this configuration file to do the job. Though a dedicated shadow shield will probably be more effective than just putting stuff in a tank. I would hope so. I mean, that's my intention. So we will have some dedicated shadow shields as well, but just in case you wanted to have something else. For instance, it's handy being able to block a whole bunch of radiation like this. And it's also important to set your pod really far in front of the reactor. So here we only have a 10-meter tank, so that's very close. But as the distance scales up, it's not just the fact that the tank is there and wider, it's also the fact that the pod is getting further and further away from the reactor. That gives us more time. Now, another thing is, this is time to unsafe for the amount of time that the reactor is active at full power. Now, it's not going to show the effect if we throttle down the reactor, but as we throttle down the reactor, we'll check in flight in a sec that it increases the time and decreases the exposure. So we'll see that outside, hopefully, but maybe I've got that wrong. So if I do, then I'll fix that. But anyway, definitely the distance is important. Here now we have nearly 50, let's say 50 meter tank, and it can last for 18.4 hours. Now, this is just the fast spectrum reactor. There is the NTR reactor, but the NTR reactor just works differently, and its exposure is not that much heavier. You still need some shielding, though, clearly. Having a nice big hydrogen tank in the middle would be good. Let's get this down to size so that we can see what happens outside. Okay, well, we have Jeb and Bob there. And here we have 2.4, 2.7, 3.1. It can go up to, those are REMs, and where it gets really dangerous is 1,000, basically, just to be roundabout. If you want to keep it to 50, that's great. I think we're on, it doesn't have the units there, but it's approximately REMs, okay? Let's chi it into orbit. So it'll just say nominal there until they get past unsafe. But let's see if I throttle this down. Okay, it does slow down. There we go. 19.2, 19.3, and it takes a few seconds. 19.4. But of course, it took some time for the reactor to throttle down. And if we go back up, it starts every second going about 0.3. So that's the way it works like that. So it does respond to the reactor being throttled down. So as long as, for just having a tank like this, if you have an NTR engine in the back, then they could probably be safe for like a 20-minute burn at a time. But it is over an entire lifetime, though. So I might need to implement something that something where the crew dose is going to diminish over time so that they can recover. But right now that's not a thing, or radiation tablets or something. I could do that, but anyway, let's see that they in fact do perish. Now, of course, even 100 REM would be dangerous. They're Kerbals. No, I mean, okay, suffering from radiation sickness happens, so we get a warning like that, sick, at that point, at 1,000 REMs. And then they die. I think that was at 2.5 to 3,000 REMs. So, yeah, they can die from radiation. So that's basically how it works, and yeah, if you put it somewhere else, like over there, they're gonna have much more radiation exposure depending on the line of sight with the reactor. And, you know, I'll have to see what seems reasonable. I'll have to check certain shielding scenarios to see if things are all right. So far, I haven't done that. So far, it's just getting the system working, and then it's a matter of tweaking the numbers. But, you know, it's possible that people might not be enthusiastic about the fact that there's not a more thorough readout. I'll think about that, you know, like a menu like this, or the attack life support tracking of the, you know, Kerbal life support. You know, if you have a lot of different missions, maybe waiting until they get radiation sickness isn't the best thing, but anyway, I'll think about how to handle that. Though you should keep track of whether things are gonna be unsafe for the duration of the mission anyway, right? Right. So, yeah, and throttle down your reactors as necessary. Incidentally, throwing down reactors to diminish radiation doesn't work perfectly like this in real life. That's not exactly how it works, but it's a good enough approximation for what we're dealing with here in Kerbal Space Program, given that in all the years of Kerbal Space Program, nobody's thought to create this kind of system. Right? So, yeah. Anyway, so far, that's how radiation is going to work in Interstellar System Heat. With that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.